Hi, Jason. It's so nice to see you after all this time. My goodness. I always think of you as a techie guy, and that was, the way I associated you in the past. And now you've gone 180 degrees into something which is very close to my heart, and that's the Landsby product, which is earth-based, native-based, Canadian-based. How on earth did you end up here? I love it.
Well, I finally ended up on the pink sofa, pink couch, sort of virtually. So I wore my jacket instead of being on the couch. No, Nina, wonderful to see you. Thanks for having me. Listen, it's a journey. We've been on a bit of a journey, and I think all advisors have been on a bit of a journey over the last several years. Those of us that are still doing the job. Um, I Thinking back, so I think at one point you remember I was running a company called Travel Zoo for Canada. So I was running the
Yes.
Canadian operations.
Yeah.
And at that time, I'd been introduced to the Canadian Tourism Board, and they had a program now. It's just been turned off, but they had a program called the Canadian Signature Experience Program, which was basically it lived as a PDF, and it was 200 designated experiences across the country that had to be applied and stamped and designated by the Canadian Tourism Board. Um, and I'd gone through the list at that point with Travel Zone. I was like, wow, some of the I've never heard of. I'm born and raised in Toronto. I've never heard of some of these things, right? Across the provinces and territories. So that lodged itself in my head at that time, and this is probably coming up on 10 years ago. Um, and I always thought sort of since then in general that Canada was a little bit, not even a little bit, it was underserved, right?
Yeah.
For Canadians, for domestic, the international market just seemed to know a lot more about Canada than we did. So COVID comes, and of course we can't leave, and no one can come in. So that presented the opportunity for this sort of thought around the program to take shape. And it was such an eye opener because I'm like, wait, there's some incredible things. And I think as we all found locally in our own backyards, like, wow, look at all these incredible things we have, in our own backyard, support
Yeah.
local and restaurants and coffee shops. So that was the genesis of the whole thing.
You don't have to go to Norway to see the Northern Lights, right? I mean,
3 hours
can
north.
obviously, and it's beautiful, but Canada's got Northern Lights, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
And I mean things like the Yukon and Hattagway and like all of these
Yeah.
places that just to me have such a romance about them, but I never really know what to do about it. And I don't know where do I go? Do I just, book myself on a flight to the Northwest Territories and poke around? Like, what do I do?
Exactly. So, and I think that was the opportunity that we saw. So we launched Landsby in June of 2021. And Landsby is a Nordic word for village. And the origins of the word Canada are indigenous Huron, which is Kanata, and Kanata also means village. So we just thought, hey, you
Oh,
know
I
what?
love it.
We've got something here. Let's make a run for it. Last couple
How
of years.
did you connect with all the various native communities that, like I saw that Métis village north of Edmonton on one of your releases, which I thought,
Yeah.
oh my God, that just looks amazing.
Yeah. Métis Crossing. So
Yeah.
yeah, which is, it's a little bit out there, but again, it's just something that people need to do, I think. How do we do that? Listen, it's relationship building. So whether it be attending a conference, attending Rendezvous Canada, which is a big yearly conference that they move around every year. Um, and as part of this, it's funny, the company we worked with to write our first press release that, Landsby's launching, called us a regenerative travel company. Why are we regenerative? And because of COVID, we were creating these hyper local experiences, right?
Ah,
That were with, a B&B or a small hotel that was owned locally. They partnered with a local restaurant. So all of this was very hyper local. And the very definition of regenerative, right? You're regenerating something. You're sort of, it has a positive impact. So there is a difference between sustainability and regenerative. Sustainability, you're trying
right.
to sustain, whereas regenerative, you're actually trying to have a positive impact, right? So regenerative travel is really where the priorities of the community that you're in take precedence over the priorities of the traveler. right? So the traveler's not just going to come in and consume and leave, and their dollars leave the country and all that stuff. That's the essence, which is probably a whole nother interview. Um, so with that regenerative side of things, and the way of the Indigenous communities in Canada, they are regenerative in nature because they're
Yeah,
all about taking care of the community,
yeah,
locals, the land. So they go hand in hand, right?
yeah.
So we were introduced to, each, basically almost each province and territory has their own Indigenous association for tourism. And then last year, we also signed the Indigenous Tourism Pledge, which is a pledge through ITAC being the Indigenous Tourism Association of Canada, which is an alignment for us to work together with them to help them become the leaders in Indigenous travel globally by 2030.
Oh
So
God, this is so exciting.
yeah.
I
So
love this.
there's a lot there. There's a lot there. And
Yeah.
from a society perspective, if you do believe in, reconciliation, right? Which I think in Canada we have a lot to discuss,
Yes, we do.
right? You can't, it's very difficult just to walk up to an Indigenous individual on the street and strike up a conversation, right? But if you're there from a tourism capacity and they're hosting you, that is sort of the path, a bit of a path to reconciliation, right? Because you're being hosted on their land, you're being welcomed to their land, they're telling you their stories. So we as travelers and those travelers that we work with, you're really learning, and it doesn't have to be the whole itinerary, but you're learning about Métis culture or Inuit or First Nations. Like you're taking some of that back with you, right? So there was one that I did with I have three kids, so my wife and I and three kids, Southwestern Ontario. He's Métis. We were on his farm, and I mean, it was just the kids remember, and that's where it has to start, right? So it has to
Yeah.
come down through the generations. So that's how we got started with the Indigenous communities
This
in Canada.
movement is, I think happening in a lot of different countries in different ways, but I don't know that anyone's taken it in hand the way you have, because we ran a promo, for instance, for Hawaii, where they want people to come and give back, and I think they call it Malama Hawaii, where you give back by uh, experiencing the culture, and that's what's considered a giving back in a certain way. And it's sort of what you're talking about. I mean, in Mexico, we talk about the whole Mayan Peninsula. I mean, yes, it's been overly
Developed and
developed. Thank you.
saturated,
Yes,
and
that word, developed. But also, there's a rebirth of the Mayan culture, and there even some of the children are being taught Maya in schools. So thank God, that we didn't totally wipe the planet out of these very, very special peoples. And
absolutely.
you're going there and reaching out and making those connections. So now, um, Jason, how do agents do something if they're interested in what you have to
Yeah, for
offer?
sure. We now, not, for the last few months, we absolutely work with travel advisors, both
Right.
domestic, Canadian, and international. We pay, good commission, but also we offer product that is different. So, if I may, having come from a travel advisor family for a long time, like I said, my grandfather, so I'm third generation now. Travel advisors, I think, in terms of maintaining relevance, Nina, and we talk about AI and we talk about airlines and commissions, and they're only paying 5% on $5 and all that stuff, right? That we all sort of listen to and talk about. Travel advisors have to be able to push themselves a little bit and really become specialists in the area that they want to support, or
Yeah.
right, or the area of travel that they want to support. So
Or that they have a passion for.
absolutely, right? Learn something that is your specialty. You're a travel professional. You're an advisor. You do your job really well. You can charge for it. Don't work for free. We all saw during COVID, you work for free, it all goes backwards. Don't work for free. And you should work and align yourself with product that you believe in and that you can support. So if that's a cruise, great. If that's a package, great. But you know what? From even just forget about from a moral perspective, just from an overall commission and your ability to earn and your ability to stand out from oh, that's a really interesting type of product. It exists, and definitely Landsby fits into that mold and what we're able to provide advisors. You have to think, we also have a country in Canada that is 4 seasons. So
Right.
the same place can be experienced in 4 different ways, depending on when you travel, right? Yukon, you mentioned Yukon being one of them. Yukon has 4 distinct seasons, and you can see the aurora in the summer, you can see the aurora in the winter. The trees are very different colors, if there's trees at all, obviously in the winter, if there's anything left. So no, there's huge opportunity for advisors from that front. And also we at Landsby, outside of paying commission, will be creating a booking solution and some technology around our product in the next sort of 6 to 12 months. So no, there's that opportunity absolutely exists for advisors for
So
sure.
you're a little bit busy, Jason. I'm so glad we had the opportunity to reconnect because I want to follow up with you once you do have some of that extra product and so that we
For
can
sure.
really focus in on how the advisors can make use of this. Because to me, everything that I've read about luxury, even if you're going to be in an indigenous village eating whale blubber, which hopefully it's not whale blubber, but seal blubber,
Yeah,
which I would eat because, you know, I'm being served something which is, you know, sacred and
they're offering you,
yeah.
exactly, exactly.
So, but I still consider it luxury because it's experiential, and that is the
Exactly.
key nowadays to selling. Thank you,
Right.
Jason, and I really I commend you for what you're doing.
Thanks, Nina. I appreciate it.